Hello and welcome to this episode of Break Even by Breakfast on the Accounting Channel with me, Mark Sweetman. This episode of Break Even by Breakfast is sponsored by First Accounts. Check out firstaccounts.ie for all of your startup accounting needs. In this episode, I was joined by Graham Brocklebank, the CEO and founder of Peer, a company that helps people with dyslexia by giving them access to their educational resources in a format that meets their needs. Hi Graham, thanks for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, how's things, Mark? Good, not too bad.
Good. How's the pandemic panning out for you so far?
To be honest with you, it's not too bad. I suppose we're affected like all companies are affected. I suppose the thing that we're kind of focusing on is that we've kind of doubled down and started development and getting our product up to getting it kind of to a more finished state, so we have a better offering for our customers. We kind of went back and did a bit more research in terms of other markets or expanding out the products to other markets. So the likes of, as you said there in the intro, you were saying education. We're expanding out to B2B further expanding our B2B to workplace, and then also looking into expanding to B2C. So parents of children with dyslexia in primary school, secondary school, that kind of thing as well.
Okay, great. So for those who haven't heard of Peer as a company, can you tell us more about the company, what problems it solves, the main problems it solves, and how it all started as well?
So Peer essentially removes the barriers for people with dyslexia, either in the workplace or in education. And we allow students or people in the workplace get access to their resources for their learning or for their workplace activities. And we essentially give it to them in better formats and make it easier for them to learn or read, and then also create documents and that kind of thing as well.
Okay, so it's educational technology, so to speak.
Yeah, it's educational technology, but from what we found from our research is that although it's educational technology, you never really stop reading and learning, as we all know, in the workplace. So, a product, although you can give a product to, say, a person with dyslexia in the educational environment, how do you support them when they go outside of that, so into the workplace? So that's where, diversity and inclusion, hot topic right now, and that's kind of where we kind of fall in, I suppose.
Great. And you're creating all of this technology yourself, you're building it from scratch, or are you taking bits and pieces from different sources and just putting something together?
We've done a combination of both, to be honest. So we kind of started out it actually started out from college, as you know, where I kind of done a very, very early stage prototype of it just to kind of see if there was something there, and it kind of expanded out from there. And then we went on to develop the app further, and now onto the website, which is replacing some of the app's features, but it overall is offering a better product or a better user experience as well to the actual user and not the customer view. So we've been very clear about our users are people with dyslexia, and customers aren't necessarily people with dyslexia.
Yeah, and I think it's great that these tools are starting to become more developed and more widely available to people with not disabilities, but people with special or needs in the educational sense. From your own personal experience, you have dyslexia yourself, so this is a pretty personal topic. Yeah. And it's something that you wish you would have had yourself going through the educational system. And do you feel like if you had the product that you're developing right now, do you feel like you would have had a much better educational experience?
Yeah, definitely. It actually, I suppose, to build on what I was saying earlier on, this product actually came. I have a first class honours degree in computer science, and this product came out from my entire thesis for when I was studying computer science. Initially, I was doing a totally different thesis project, and what happened was I was reading and researching, and I was kind of going, the assist technologies that I was given weren't really suiting my needs, so it was kind of it bore out from there. And that's really where it started. So it was kind of like, how do you actually address the problem of, initially it was just reading. So it's like, how do you initially address the problem for reading for a person with dyslexia so you can read a lot of content quickly and be able to keep up and actually be able to consume a lot of information quickly. So that's really where it bore from, and then expanded quite quickly from there.
So you've been working on this idea for 2 years now, as you said, and you recently got awarded Competitive Start Fund from Enterprise Ireland. Congratulations on that. That's not an easy achievement. So To go back to 2 years ago, why did you stop what you were currently doing? Why did you quit the job? And what gave you the impetus to actually start and develop this idea that was at the time just in your head?
When I was presenting my thesis to my lecturers and to the outside coordinators, they stopped. One of the outside coordinator, after I'd done my initial pitch for my demonstration, stopped me in the process and said, whatever you do after this, you need to follow up on this. And that kind of gave me sort of a little bit of confidence. I knew what I was onto was a good idea, but that kind of gave me a little bit more confidence to keep going, and then go to, say, New Frontier, start doing a bit of research. I actually started doing a local enterprise office, starting on business course, found out about New Frontiers from there, and then sort of went from there on to, I suppose, to New Frontiers. And I suppose the real thing that kind of got me going with trying to address this problem is because dyslexia is, like, I know I've had my issues with dyslexia in education, and it's such a common problem that, like, the solve for the person with dyslexia really doesn't help them or address their needs throughout education. And so because that isn't solved, there's such a massive market opportunity and such a like potential to help millions of people all over the world. Like, and as I said, like, and as we've talked about, I know what it's like for a person with dyslexia, trying to learn, trying to read, trying to keep up with your schoolmates, and then you have a lot of stress and anxiety on top of that. So that's really what I wanted to solve, is just trying to solve that problem for people with dyslexia.
Great. So now you've got a business, it's going well so far. To move on to the actual business itself then, what has been the most challenging non-financial aspect of the business for you to date?
I suppose my thing is that I'm good at talking to people, and find out, like customer interviews, user interviews, and find out information, find out the required information. But my biggest thing, I suppose, my biggest learning curve, and actually New Frontiers kind of came into this, where I kind of learned this, was managing other people. I'd never really managed other people beforehand. Getting used to managing people, getting used to keep on top of things, address issues early. So that was kind of my biggest sort of learning curve at the start. And then also, as you know, financials is another aspect and another its own beast as it comes into as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that leads me on to my next question. What's the most challenging financial aspect of running the business or starting the business?
I suppose the thing is, if you don't have money, you can't do anything. You can obviously do stuff without any money, but it's very, very difficult. So, like, being able to have runway there and actually being able to understand where your money needs to go is probably the biggest challenge. And I think it's one of those things that it continues biggest challenge, because you always need to be kind of addressing, am I spending the right money amount now? Is this the right decision for the company? Because if you are getting, say, if you outsource any bits of development or anything like that, you could be talking a couple of thousand, which it is essentially it could be someone's or two people's wages for a month, which means another month of the company keep going, or if not longer. So really keeping your eye on the ball in terms of your cash flow, what you have in the account and what's going out of the account is really, I suppose, the biggest challenge, but it's a continuous challenge as well.
Mm-hmm. And how do you manage that cash flow at the moment? Do you keep an eye on it every day, week?
I keep an eye on my account. I say look at the amounts of money in the account probably once a day. It's probably one of the things that's my biggest, even though we're financially we're okay, it's one of my biggest stresses. But I think as a person, that's just me, that I'll always worry about money. But I suppose my thing is that I just keep an eye on it. I know exactly how much is in the account. I know how much is going out of the account, and I continuously do like a cash flow my own, and it's just I do it actually in my own money, what I have in my day-to-day spending.
So you replicate what you've done in your personal life in the business, so to speak. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I have 3 months broken down of what money's going in and out, and I know exactly at the end of the month how much money I should have in the account. So at any stage when I look at the account, my money in my account, either my personal or my business, I know exactly how much money's there from this, my spending, how much we have, that kind of thing. And if it's off, then I'm like, what's going on? Which thankfully I haven't had any issues with.
Yeah, great. And just to go back to competitive start fund and financing the business, how did you find the process of applying for competitive start fund, both in terms of the application itself? I know you have to do, there's a sort of video segment, and then you have to do a pitch if you get past the initial application. How did you find the whole process? Was it extremely difficult, manageable? Would you recommend people go through it?
Oh, I definitely recommend you go through it. It's a great sort of litmus test to see if your product has the salt to keep going, I suppose. Because the pitch itself is actually, out of all the pitches I've done, and I've done a good few at this stage, it's probably one of the more intimidating ones, because you essentially could have, I think I had 9 people in the room, whereas previous pitches I only had maybe 2 or 3, and the questions were really, like you probably know yourself, like when you get pitched, when sometimes you pitch, you don't really you get kind of softball questions then that lead up to a big question, whereas the CSF questions straight away were, straight to the point, straight to the bone. How are you doing it?
Yeah, can you give us some example, like maybe 2 or 3 sort of?
So straight to our value prop, and showing evidence and how we're solving our value proposition, and then showing evidence of how we actually have really just showing how evidence how we're having customers. Whereas other, I suppose, questions is like, how do you, like, as a dyslexic person, do you think your product is going to do well? Do you know what I mean? And like that's an easy question for anyone to say. That's a CEO and founder of a product for people with dyslexia who's a person with dyslexia.
So it's like, yeah, of course it's going to do well.
Yeah, it's like, yes. Do you know what I mean? So, but I suppose, like I actually can't remember his name, and I don't know, but there was a guy actually in our pitch, and he actually had a person in his family that had dyslexia, and I think it's dyscalculia, he said as well. So he knew a lot about kind of the environment, and he literally nailed this straight away, and just kept it. And to be honest with you, a couple of people went to, and he's like, no, I got one more question, and he followed up, and he was just, clarification, everything, like, and I walked out of it going, oh my God, that was like the most intense experience I've ever had in a pitch process. But in saying that, he knew the questions to ask, and because that, he got I suppose he was the one of the people that kind of helped us get where we're going.
That's great. So, like, you had somebody with an emotional connection, so to speak, to your problem solution fit, or your problem and solution. And in a sense, he kind of dragged out the more detailed aspects that maybe the other investors or panelists would not have asked of your company, because they just are not familiar with that industry or piece of technology.
Exactly. Like, for instance, like I don't mention in, say, when you're doing a pitch or whatever, I don't mention that we change the color of text, and the background color of text, and to you that sounds like what? Do you know what I mean? That's a user experience thing, and it's totally irrelevant. But to a person with dyslexia or a person with dyscalculia, that's a massive thing in terms of what the potential offer for the product can help them. So he knew straight away to ask those questions to make sure that we're doing all those things. So it gave us, it was great. It was although it was a very intense pitch, it was very good. I was kind of like, wow, that was intense. It was actually, I think it stood to us, I suppose.
Great. And I'm just conscious, like, we have viewers who are in the process of applying for CSF.
Yeah.
And is it a requirement? It seems to be, to me anyway, of all the people I know who've gotten CSF, that they either have sales already or they have sales orders nailed down. Was that the case for you? Did you have to demonstrate that somebody was willing to pay for the product without it even being developed in order for you to secure that CSF funding?
So we had a pilot in TU Dublin Blanchetown with our product. So because of that opened up the door for us. And my recommendation, and actually I know a couple of people who've gotten it now at CSF. There's a couple of people that are pitching the same time as me that I know that I've actually become quite good friends. And we met during the whole CSF process actually. And from them, they actually just had people that had, if this product's created, we're going to buy it. So essentially a letter of, what's the word I'm looking for? A letter of
intent. Letter of intent. Yeah.
Yeah, letter of intent. There we go. A letter of intent. But they had that from a number of customers. It wasn't just one customer. So they showed the value of what they could do or what they could create. But it's one of the big sort of stipulations is that you need to show your customers. But you could have a customer. We were charging our pilot price, which is actually what we're charging for our product now. But you could have a customer paying as even a small token amount, which would still classify as a payment. But you just need to show that there's people willing to pay money to use your product or for your service.
I think a lot of people are applying for CSF only have an idea. Well, most of the time they are coming out of New Frontiers and they're told, obviously, it can't be an idea. You need to have some sort of market validation and product market fit. Well, not product market fit just yet, but definitely some sort of market validation, at least a few people with this problem willing to pay for the solution. Have you tried raising finance from other sources, and how did that go?
Yeah, so we have another investor, the Bolton Trust, who we actually got before CSF. And to be honest with you, one of the things that like the likes of say competitive start fund and stuff like that, they also look to see like past performance predicts future performance. So because we had the previous investor of the Bolton Trust, that kind of aided us to get to the next level, I suppose, and it kind of bolstered a case for increased or more revenue, increased finance or supporting us in our products.
And what do you think is the hardest part of raising finance?
It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
I don't think people are like it's one of those things that you are like, say for instance, doing an application for a CSF. Now this could be me because I have dyslexia, but like I think I spent the guts of, I'd say 200 hours, I'd say over a space of a month getting that ready. And like that's so like now, and that's me being totally granular, making sure that I'm very succinct in all the information I'm giving the user or the person that's reading that there's no misclarification or and I know that sounds it's probably a little bit pedantic, but it's one of those things that if you want it, I suppose you put in the extra work for it,
200 hours, that's quite a lot.
I'd say so, because like I have my initial template one, then my template one would modify based on the question, but I'd put that in. But I redid my application I actually just redid because our value props kind of changed recently. But I was redoing because we had stumbled across sort of a new sort of area, so I had actually redone my application or my sort of questions and how we answer questions, and also what we were doing had changed so much in those sort of 6-7 months since we had done New Frontiers. So it changed so much that I couldn't not but just start from new and redo it,
Yeah. And are you doing are you currently looking for third-party seed investment or sort of venture capital? And how is that going?
It's good. It's a lot of conversations, I suppose, is probably the better way of saying it. Conversations with people. I suppose one of the things that pre-COVID, it was one of the things that was it was the hot topic was diversity and inclusion and supporting people with different sort of learning abilities, and in and out of education, so in the workplace as well. Obviously things have kind of changed. That's kind of moved a little bit back. So I'm still hoping that we have potential opportunities come up there over the next one.
And for seed investors, would you be aiming for, like, to put it bluntly, rich people who have dyslexia? Because potentially they would sort of, it goes to the whole idea of smart money, that your investor should know about your product. It shouldn't just be a person giving you money. They should bring along a certain skill set as well as the money. So it's smart money. Would you be looking for an investor that has gone through the education system, knowing what it's like to be dyslexic, and is, has a sort of personal association with your company? Do you think that would be a benefit?
Yeah, definitely. One of the, I can't say the name, but one of the people that we've talked to in terms of funds, the person who we're kind of our main contact is a person that has experience in education as a background, understands kind of the problem, the issues facing people with dyslexia. So yeah, smart money is really what we're looking after. But the other thing as well is, like, say the likes of funds and stuff like that, they will do their due diligence. They will, they will check in, and if they don't know, they'll find out they'll go talk to the people who do know before they go have any kind of real kind of deep dive conversations with you about what you're doing. They might go in and talk to you initially just with like, oh, this sounds interesting, but they will do their due diligence.
Yeah.
Due diligence. Yeah.
And then I suppose is the next aim after that is to sort of migrate up the Enterprise Ireland chain and get a high potential startup fund as well. Yeah.
Because that's the thing that people, when you get CSF, you're potentially, it kind of gives you the goal approval to get the HPSU, which is against just massive like match funding for people at our level to get to the next. Like, that really can bring in so much more money and actually just get your product and everything out there so much quicker.
How's the business doing in terms of sales, and do you have a sort of good sales method that you use, or are you just you're just basically evolving the market research conversations into sales channels?
A combination of both, to be honest with you. We primarily focus on direct sales, and that's because I'm actually the one talking to our customers. And as a person with dyslexia, there's no when I'm talking to, say, the disability support officers or the AT officers, say, in universities, they already understand. They already know that I understand the problem because I'm a person with dyslexia, and so it's not like, oh, what are you creating, or and then from that, we're actually, the thing I'd always say to anyone is that when you're talking to your customers, you're always learning. You never stop learning. Mm-hmm. So you're always getting really good information about how things can change and how things are changing. So we have a good few leads, and so hopefully over the next couple of months we will have sort of September time, and we'll have a good few sales. So yeah. And
if you could give any one piece of advice to startup founders today, judging based on what you know, what would your advice be? I'd have
a couple of things for advice. It's a lot harder than what I suppose. It's a lot harder than what everyone thinks it is. It's also a lot more stressful. I think one of the biggest things, there's a couple of things, like, you never stop learning from your customers, as I just said there a second ago, and going to talk to people early is better than going to talk to people when you think you're ready. So, like, if you have a product that's, essentially broken, doesn't work properly, prototype, and nothing's kind of come together, but go and talk to, the people, not necessarily customers, but people that can help you get to the next level, can really be a benefit. And I'd always recommend talking to the local enterprise office, or if you can, go on New Frontiers. I think that's like been massive to the success of what we're doing. Really, like, both of them together has been massive.
So the title of this show is called Break Even by Breakfast, and we're using it as an analogy for your business journey. Breakfast time being the point at which your business breaks even. So with that in mind, is it breakfast time for your business yet?
No, I'd say it's probably about 5:45 in the morning. It's probably the best way to put it right now. Okay. Obviously with COVID and everything, no one knows what's kind of going on. So hopefully, I'll be saying it's breakfast time by December.
Yeah, that'd be great. End of the year, we're looking at somewhat.
If things go well.
If things go well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Graham, thanks very much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences with us. And I found it really enjoyable. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you soon for another episode of Break Even by Breakfast. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.